Today's trip takes you from my hometown up to the Derbyshire Dales and see where the Industrial Revolution took place, and to then travel further north to see how industrialisation has broken through the beauty of the natural world. I also aim to achieve the argument of, is capitalism and consumerism destroying the natural world? And what does this mean for the future? I will then be travelling to Derby and seeing the contrast between the natural world and the newer, modernised ideology of city life. This project will aim to present you with the sounds and sights of the beauties of somewhere like the Peak District in comparison to the bustling homogeneous cities. We'll be visiting 3 locations on our trip today: the Cromford Mill, the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, the Monsell Trail Viaduct, and the inner city of Derby. I hope from this you see why I have such a keen interest in the natural world, and what the worries are from us as a society becoming too transfixed on consumerism and capitalistic ideas. Upon our approach to our first location, we twist and turn around the intricacies of the natural world of the Peak District and are reminded of its beauty. Sir Richard Arkwright was born in 1732 and is arguably the face of the Industrial Revolution. His invention at the Cromford Mill was the catalyst for the production of mass consumerism. According to the Britannica website, he became interested in spinning machinery at least by 1764, when he began construction of his first machine. By 1782, Arkwright had a capital of £200,000 and employed 5,000 workers. In modern money, that is around £39,893,333, according to the CPI inflation calculator. Arkwright himself reminds me a lot of John Cadbury, as the village we see today was built with profits from the mill itself. He was able to create housing and leisure for his workers that provided shelter and pastimes. From a socialist point of view, what he created was a safe space for workers, and he believed that the care for his employees was paramount. Although when taking this amazing creation of a water wheel that would generate power to the machines, we see there is some negativity around this. As I said earlier, this creation really sparked the start of the Industrial Revolution. Not everybody had the same intentions with workhouses. According to the Historic UK, the harsh system of the workhouse became synonymous with the Victorian era, an institution which became known for its terrible conditions, forced child labour, long hours, malnutrition, beatings and neglect. What I believe is important to delve into is how the working conditions of workers at Cromford Mills differed, and was there a difference between how children were treated in London's workhouses? I was able to obtain a diary entry from Joseph Farington, an English painter and diarist who visited the Cromford Mill at the peak of its existence. He claimed that he saw these children are employed in Mr. Arkwright's mill, working the weekdays and on Sundays attend a school where they received an education, and looked healthy and well and were decently clothed and cleaned. Seeing this gives the impression that Arkwright's way of utilising a workhouse was a place for lower classes to come to learn, to earn and to better themselves. The sad thing is that after his creation, what could be argued as the perfect example of a working environment in these conditions was exploited and warped. This is where the argument comes through of my overarching question: is capitalism and consumerism destroying the natural world? Arkwright may not have seen or expected what the outcome would be from this. Although his creation and the presentation of a workhouse, and arguably a quicker, more efficient way of creating higher class luxuries, created society to be able to buy into consumerism. We see this quaint little village in the Peak District with this Victorian stone building as something that is rather beautiful and fits into the natural surroundings. Though looking at it from a modern day mindset, we are reminded of what it caused. As an example, just 50 miles from this location sits Manchester. Manchester prior to the Industrial Revolution was just a small market town until it was used as the capital of cotton products in the late 18th century and continued to grow rapidly into the 19th century. Manchester was coined as the Cottonopolis due to its rapid manufacturing of cotton in this period. In a painting by William Wilde named Manchester from Purcell Moor, which was completed in 1852, you can see the massive metropolis of smoke towers and smog has arguably destroyed the natural surroundings of what once was a small market town. This is not a piece to blame Arkwright for his invention of easier creation, although to see with the benefit of hindsight that his ideology to do this was ultimately the catalyst for capitalistic gain of consumerism. Here are some shots I took at the Cromford Mill, and I implore you to listen to the sound of the water gushing through the mill's waterways. I think what was oddly ironic was how, when visiting the gift shop in Cromford Mills, I was able to purchase anything from birthday cards for my nan, an AA map book, to a bottle with the Mills logo on it. The place that aided the less fortunate, lower classes has now become a place for merchandise and tea rooms where the middle class go to visit to see how the working life was back then. Something that sparked the industrialised ideas of consumerism is now a place for consumerism to thrive with little knick-knack things for the more fortunate to collect. We now travel to our next location, the Purcell Trail Viaduct. The houses we saw on our way were funded by the Arkwright Company, which was a nice reminder of how he did care for his workers. This is a clear indication of how modern technology and capitalism broke and contorted the natural world. According to the BBC, the line was opened in the 1860s but closed in 1968. Parts have since become popular with walking and cycling routes. When going down to the tunnel, you are reminded of what once stood here on this bridge, and what smoke and smog would fill up this area. The consumerist agenda here is how the natural world has been transformed through modern creation to create an easier route for commuters of the Victorian era. I think what was the most upsetting things to this, however, was the proposal to try and create this once again as the railway lines for modern day trains. In the same BBC article, the Manchester and East Midlands Rail Action Partnership campaigned for the reinstatement of the Peaks and Dales line and claimed that linking the Peak District National Park's most cut-off areas with direct trains running again between Derby and Manchester could benefit the tourism trade. Luckily, the government refused the proposal, although not because they thought it was a bad idea, but because the funding had closed. This is not to say this won't ever happen, which is the most worrying aspect for the future. The Peak District is beautiful for many reasons. For myself, it is a place away from homogeneous city life and an escape from the sounds of public transport. The restorative power of nature is something that should be celebrated, not destroyed. A quote found on a website around the Purcell Trail claimed that John Ruskin said in 1863, after the line's completion, "There was a rocky valley between Buxton and Bakewell once upon a time, divine as the Vale of Tempe. You enterprised a railroad through the valley, you blasted its rocks away, heat thousands of tons of shale into its lovely stream. The valley is gone, and the gods with it. Now every fool in Buxton can be in Bakewell in half an hour, and every fool in Bakewell at Buxton, which you think a lucrative process of exchange. You fools everywhere. The last thing that I know I want is to revisit this place in, say, 20 years' time, to show my children, and now there is a high-speed train chugging down it, just because the rail companies see that the consumerism and capitalist financial gain greater than the memories of walking such a unique route." We now finally arrive at our final location of the journey, Derby. Derby, with a population of around 261,400 in 2021 according to the census. There are still undertones of the old city values, but more so towards the university district, which see the high-rise buildings and the sites we associate with homogeneous metropolis cities. I want you to listen now for a moment to the sounds of us driving around this area and hear the contrasting comparison to the serene Peak District. We decided to travel away from this and walk towards the River Derwent, which runs through the city. What was interesting to see is how this water further up towards Matlock was used at the Cromford Mills, and see it now as a hyper-object through the bustling city. As flats and graffiti sit on the banks, we are reminded of how capitalism and consumerism is slowly encroaching on things that have stood way before our time and are shadowed over by modern life. To conclude, as we drive back from Derby to home, I am fueled with two emotions, happiness and worry. Happiness to be up in the mountains in the fresh air, although worried about the future of these locations. Will we see the Modsall Trail be reopened for the betterment of consumerism? Will Derby grow larger and the old areas be cast upon by modern infrastructure? And a rather interesting question as to, if Sir Richard Arkwright's invention never became a creation, would we have seen consumerism skyrocket to what we see now? I hope from this project you see how beautiful the natural world is, and the fear towards what the future holds for us as a society. These hyper-objects of mountains, hills and rivers will be there for generations to come, or will they stay the same way? Remember to take into careful consideration what the natural world is, so our future generations can experience these feelings of happiness too. Thank you.